The message swept through the outer colonies like a shadow crawling over light. Another system had gone dark. No survivors, no transmissions, no wreckage. Just silence. The Forlac had struck again. Reports filtered through the interstellar networks. Encrypted communiques filled with fragments of horror. Thermal anomalies, ship disappearances, corpses with no blood left in them, and in some cases, nothing at all. The most advanced civilizations in the galactic quadrant were paralyzed. The Forlac weren't invaders. They were erasers. Apex predators evolved in environments so hostile that entire continents on their homeworld were labeled uninhabitable by even their own kind. But they survived, adapted, and killed everything in their path until only they remained. They had no concept of negotiation, diplomacy, or surrender. They only understood the hunt. A low hum of resignation spread among the peaceful races. Earth was next, and this time there would be no heroics, no fleet to save them. Humanity was isolated, aggressive, and deeply misunderstood by the rest of the galaxy. They weren't part of the Central Coalition, hadn't joined any major pacts, and had spent more time fighting themselves than making allies. In the minds of the galactic community, they were an eccentric, immature species, just intelligent enough to be interesting, just primitive enough to be expendable. It was almost a mercy. Some argued the Forlac will remove the anomaly of humanity from the galactic equation. Forlac strike scouts entered the Sol system in silence. Their ships were grown, not built, organic leviathans coated in bio-chitin plating that absorbed electromagnetic waves and scattered sensors. No energy trails, no emissions. They approached with confidence. They'd done this before. The prey never saw them coming. Earth was full of noise, radio waves, orbiting junk, random emissions, but none of it was structured enough to hide defensive infrastructure. No planetary shields, no large orbital guns, no spaceborne defense grid, just a clutter of satellites and empty threats. The first team touched down near a remote human settlement. The mission was simple: capture, study, dismantle. 10 Forlacs stepped onto the soil with predatory grace. They moved in total synchronization, silent and confident, invisible to every conventional human sensor. Heat signatures cloaked, scent masked. They found a small human structure, a home. No weapons outside, no security. One human sat by a fire, staring into the flames. A female, alone, perfect. The Forlac spread out, circling. The leader signaled the others. 2 moved forward. But the moment they crossed the threshold of her sensory range, the woman turned. No panic, no scream, just a sharp inhalation followed by a single word: visitors. Before the Forlac could act, she moved. A crude flare gun fired into the air, arcing red light. A sound echoed from the forest. Whistles, calls, subtle but deliberate. The Forlac didn't panic. Traps were common among intelligent prey, but they underestimated the scale. From the trees, dark shapes moved, fast, silent, precise. Human forms in ghillie suits with infrared suppressors. Homemade EM jammers activated, cutting off Forlac signal relays. Bullets were not fired. Not yet. Instead, humans used rope spikes, explosives crafted from fertilizer and scrap metal. In less than 6 minutes, 3 Forlac were dead, not vaporized or gunned down, but dismembered with close-quarters brutality. One had its head crushed under a boulder, pushed manually by a human operative. Another was garroted by a cord laced with nanodiamonds. The third had its throat bitten open after a trap failed and a human tackled it. The Forlac's neural net pulsed warnings. This was not a hunt. It was a miscalculation. The surviving scouts retreated, managing to extract one body. Their bio-ship recorded the engagement. They played the footage over and over. These were not the actions of prey. Humans did not freeze. They did not run. They adapted instantly. They counter-hunted. Worse, they improvised with tools so primitive they shouldn't have worked. But they did. The Forlac High Mind demanded more data. Full-scale probing missions commenced. 10 drop sites globally. Urban zones, jungles, deserts, tundra. Each squad of Forlac was equipped with additional stealth tech and bio-shields. They expected the humans to fight harder this time. They were right, but they had no frame of reference for what that meant. In New Delhi, the Forlac attempted a silent infiltration of a slum district. They moved among the buildings using phase cloaking and sound-dampening tech. But their passage triggered localized power surges, booby traps rigged by children using scavenged batteries. A human gang armed with knives, hammers, and axes struck like a wave. They didn't try to escape. They came to kill. In Siberia, a group of Forlac deployed near a mining operation. They attempted abductions. Instead, they were caught in a mine shaft explosion triggered by a human worker who stayed behind to lure them in. His last recorded message, sent moments before detonation, was 4 words: "Tell them we hunt." In Rio, a Forlac scout was captured alive, dragged into an underground bunker, stripped of its weapons, and questioned. The humans didn't use pain. They used silence, lights in their eyes, cold and unflinching. The Forlac broke. It spoke. It warned. But what it said made no sense to its superiors. They enjoy it. By the end of the first week, 47% of all Forlac insertion teams had been wiped out. High-mind logic processors demanded a reevaluation. This wasn't a resistance. This was a different kind of predator. One that didn't just respond to threats. It escalated. Humanity didn't fight defensively. They adapted, retooled, and reversed the kill chain. The Central Command of Earth went dark. No press conferences. No alerts. Intelligence networks coordinated silently across militaries, borders, and languages. Scientists broke down Forlac remains and began reverse engineering their stealth tech. Engineers built decoys. Hunters were deployed globally under a new classification: E-class engagement units, extermination class. In the Congo, E-class teams lured Forlac troops using infrared signals mimicking wounded humans. As the Forlac approached the target zone, thermite rigs ignited beneath their feet, triggered by pressure plates buried in mud. The jungle lit up. Screams echoed for hours. One survivor crawled into the underbrush, its cloaking broken, bleeding heavily. A child found it. The footage showed her standing over it, head tilted, curiosity in her eyes. She didn't run. She just whispered, "You picked the wrong world." The Forlac launched a retaliatory strike from orbit. They hit a rural region in Kansas. 40 miles incinerated, 3,000 dead. The response was immediate. Human aerospace engineers activated a dormant project, Operation Icarus. A satellite weapon disguised as space junk reoriented and released a kinetic rod from orbit. It pierced the attacking Forlac ship from bow to stern. No explosives needed, just velocity. No warning was given. No claim of responsibility. Human behavior was officially classified by the Forlac as paradoxical aggression. The galactic term meant nothing to humans, but to the aliens, it was a classification reserved for life forms that didn't fit into survival patterns. Organisms that thrived not despite conflict, but because of it. Predators feared the unexpected. Humanity thrived in it. The Forlac high mind retracted every remaining scout from Earth's surface. What was intended to be a cleansing hunt had become a hemorrhaging operation. Losses surpassed projected thresholds. For the first time in recorded Forlac history, a target species inflicted unsustainable casualties. The data, once classified as corrupted or anomalous, now received full priority. Dozens of high-caste neurophages were tasked with studying human behavior. What they found defied instinct. Humanity's baseline psychology operated on a principle alien to the Forlac: escalation without boundary. Civilizations before had resisted the Forlac, but always with containment in mind. Delays, stalling, negotiation. Humanity held no such concepts. Their strategic philosophy was rooted in overwhelming retaliation. For every Forlac corpse recovered, humans built 5 new weapons, trained 10 new soldiers, and developed 3 new tactics. Entire industries shifted overnight. Civilian manufacturing converted to combat supply chains. Black markets flooded with alien tech repurposed by backyard engineers. The line between soldier and civilian dissolved. Satellites intercepted encrypted bursts from low Earth orbit. Vork observers deploying thermal mapping of megacities. The humans responded by spoofing those scans with decoys, using heat pumps and flame projections to mislead targeting algorithms. Strike pods deployed on coordinates that appeared unprotected but were carefully baited. Each one landed into kill zones manned by layered concentric traps, not digital but physical, built with rudimentary means and cruel precision. In Manila, a Forlac ship observed what it thought was a vulnerable city power grid. Within 40 minutes of launching an electromagnetic pulse to destabilize it, the ship received a feedback loop through its own targeting systems. The signal had been traced, captured, modified, and returned. A dead signal should not think, but this one did. It transmitted a message in Forlac code, unknown to humans. Translated, it read, "Wrong species." Back in orbit, the Forlac assembled a Dread-class fleet. 12 cruisers, reinforced with thermal scatter plating and anti-ballistic membranes, entered Earth's upper atmosphere. Bombardment protocol initiated, but something disrupted their descent. Human space infrastructure, dismissed previously as inert, activated. Retired space stations, long abandoned, detonated as kinetic mines, tearing through 3 cruisers. Micro-debris fields created invisible kill zones that shredded the shielding of another. The remaining ships adjusted course. That's when the clouds broke. Human aircraft, built from patchwork technology with untraceable propulsion modifications, launched from hidden bases. These weren't mass-produced fighters. They were one-of-a-kind constructs, custom engines, jury-rig weaponry, unorthodox armor. They didn't follow flight formations. They fought like wolves. Not for survival, for dominance. One pilot's last transmission before impact was intercepted by the Forlac. "We're not trying to win. We're trying to make sure you lose harder." Earth's nations didn't issue joint statements. They issued mutual silence. From the outside, it appeared as chaos. But internally, a shared protocol emerged, not from command structures, but from cultural reflex. Every human region developed its own anti-Forlac doctrine, adapted to terrain, resource limitations, and social structure. In Australia, fire corridors were used to create radiant mirages, masking real troop movements. Indigenous tribes worked with military units to weaponize ancient hunting strategies. In Mongolia, horseback scouts deployed EMP pulse spears using ceramic capacitors. In Detroit, factories were converted to churn out non-standard railguns using salvaged satellite coils. The Forlac attempted a new tactic, empathy dissonance. Using frequency modulation and visual hypnotics, they broadcast signals meant to induce paralysis through emotional overload. The effects were disastrous for the Forlac. Human neural resistance proved bizarrely high. Subjects exposed to pulse either ignored it entirely or became enraged. One incident in Nigeria documented a local militia intercepting the signal and embedding it into their war drums, blasting it back at Forlac units during ambushes. The psychological barrier of the Forlac had relied on shattered. Fear was not a limiting factor for humans. It was fuel. The Forlac began experiencing collective neuromimetic degradation, a term for what could only be described as trauma. For a species bred for the hunt, being hunted was incomprehensible. Survivors from ground assaults began showing signs of instability. Commanders requested cleansing of contaminated soldiers. But High Command denied the purge. Resources were thinning. Discipline broke. The first Forlac mutiny occurred over Earth's southern hemisphere. 2 warships fired on each other, each claiming the other had been compromised by human mimetic warfare. The blast signatures were recorded and played on loop by human networks with added subtitles. Let them devour themselves. Humanity had no centralized AI, no global council, and no species-wide plan. But what emerged was worse, a distributed intelligence of coordinated chaos. Where Forlac doctrine relied on unity and order, humans thrived in fragmentation and unpredictability. The messier the battlefield, the more effective they became. Forlac attempts to analyze human literature and art for insight proved detrimental. Their analysts were overwhelmed by narratives glorifying resistance, vengeance, and sacrifice. Even children's tales were about slaying monsters. The concept of a hero who dies just to spark another's defiance was irrational, but it appeared in every culture. The Forlac concluded that humanity had ritualized defiance into a genetic behavior. In Alaska, a Forlac biomech deployed to harvest samples. It encountered an isolated outpost manned by 6 humans. The Forlac expected minimal resistance. Instead, the outpost self-destructed using a geothermal overload. No escape attempt. No final warning. Just annihilation. In the debris, a charred sign read, "Extinction works both ways." Humanity's cultural frameworks adapted mid-conflict. Entertainment sectors turned war into inspiration. Songs, visual media, even fashion reflected the battle against the invaders. Underground channels distributed Forlac kill count leaderboards. A 19-year-old from Poland became a viral legend after taking out a drop pod with a reprogrammed mining drone. His last post read, "They said we were weak. I say we're just not done evolving yet." The Forlac retaliated with bioweapons. Modified spores designed to disable mammalian respiration were deployed over parts of Eastern Europe. The attack killed thousands. But within 72 hours, human counterbiology teams isolated the organism, re-engineered it, and released a reversal agent via crop dusters. By the end of the week, the modified spore had been turned into a targeted Forlac neurotoxin and loaded into proximity mines disguised as ruins. Forlac's strategy collapsed into paranoia. No landing was safe. No transmission untraceable. No infiltration undetected.